Welcome to a very special episode on the Magica Addict channel, and today we'll be talking to Starfield Eclipse. Hey Starfield Eclipse.
Hello everyone.
Welcome.
It's very nice to be on the channel today.
Now, I've always believed that Bethesda did an amazing job designing Starfield's gameplay systems. In this video, we will explore some of these systems, but more importantly, I'm thrilled to be collaborating with the Starfield Eclipse YouTube channel to bring you expert insights into how many of these systems function. So let's dive right in. A warm welcome to Starfield Eclipse. I'm incredibly glad to have you here, and I genuinely admire your positive approach to Starfield content, especially your refusal to cater to the YouTube algorithm by indulging in the Bethesda bashing that so many channels use to farm views. To kick things off, I have a question for you. What is your perspective on the Starfield gaming community in 2026?
I think since the Terran Armada and Free Lanes expansions dropped to Starfield itself, a lot of the negativity of the game has kind of softened a lot. Often I will see more negative focus on Elder Scrolls 6 than I do on Starfield currently. So definitely things seem good right now as far as like the Starfield community is going. But there's always grumbles and gripes about stuff.
Right, that's always the case, especially in the Bethesda gaming community. So we are here to talk about Starfield's systems, right? And we do know that Starfield is a deeply systems-driven sandbox RPG. And the immense effort invested in creating its dedicated mechanics, I think, truly deserves praise. Did you enjoy exploring the systems? And also, do you think Bethesda missed an opportunity by not integrating many of these systems into the stories or the settled systems?
So I will say I do enjoy exploring a lot of the different systems that they do have in place. But I will say that it would be significantly better if they had narrative ties, because I can name several systems that have no narrative tie. No one kind of like hooked it into any kind of quest or story functions, and a lot of times those particular ones players don't really do or do anything with them. So I think that's a little bit of a shame that some of these better systems didn't get included narratively into the game, but overall, I'm glad they're there. I wouldn't want them, cut on the editing room floor because they didn't have time to write story hooks for every single mechanical system within the game. But that being said, I wish some of these did have tie-ins.
Right. I mean, I guess if you use your creative faculties and try to explore these systems on your own, you can have a lot of fun in Starfield, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people play many of these story games and they expect the story to guide them through games. That's been the trend nowadays, and not many people take time to actually explore systems in game, so that's unfortunate. Bethesda games are all about systems than the narrative. Their focus is on the sandbox, right? Anyway, let's get into it. Let's start talking about some of the systems. We have 20 systems, so let's get into it. The first one is a huge system. It's the Astronomical Simulation system, right? The game has a real-time modeling of orbits, axial tilts, planetary rotation, and dynamic events like eclipses that are visible from surfaces or in space. This makes the galaxy feel alive and scientifically grounded. In my opinion, it's an amazing system, a full-scale celestial simulation across all of the star systems. Something almost no one anticipated from an RPG. Alright, Mr. Eclipse, I know that you are a huge fan of the system. You made some amazing videos on your channel in the early days. And as I watched your videos, I was in awe as I realized how the game rewards patient observers who take time to watch the skies, plan landings around lighting conditions, or chase perfect views. My mind was blown back then. Do share some of your insights and experiences.
So first thing I'll say is I've been a huge fan of Bethesda's skybox since 2002 and playing Morrowind and looking up at that skybox. That is something that I think Bethesda has done, particularly within the Elder Scrolls series, to paint a skybox in a way that it really sets the mood. And I think they did that. They nailed it out of the park with Starfield. Because not only do you get these breathtaking, gorgeous skyboxes, but you have an infinite amount of them because these systems they're fully simulated. You're talking about like things like inclination and eccentricity of the different orbital bodies. They're all fully simulated. If I was going to describe it, I would call it almost like a clockwork simulation, where you essentially have these gears moving in space, where they're calculating every single position of all the celestial bodies to basically simulate what the skybox would look like in real time with these orbital processions. And I just found that amazing because you get to enjoy these astronomical events like eclipses. And in fact, basically every different type of eclipse is possible and does occur in the game. I've witnessed them before. I have a large playlist on my channel just of eclipses, and you can see different types and different styles that occur. But just absolutely amazing thing that, it kind of captivated me into the game, because the skybox really set the immersion within this game.
Wow, amazing. This system just highlights the greatness of Bethesda RPGs. In my opinion, no other studios invest time and resources to do something like this, and that has to be commended, right? Now, I have another question. I have observed how each planet in Starfield also has its own time zone. I think this is a natural result of the real-time celestial simulation, right? Do you know if this multiple time zone system impacts gameplay in any way?
So, first thing I'd like to say is this is like one of those things that really confuses the heck out of players. So, your time zone system is based off of the planet's day-night cycle, the local planet, and I would say that this does affect gameplay. So, if you are on planets that have experienced really slow time, the manufacturing process within the outpost system is slower. Same with the mining process. I don't know why that is. It doesn't really actually make much sense. But this is just a very interesting thing, and you can actually see it within the skyboxes. So some planets will have like very fast rotation speed, and you'll basically see the night sky like wheeling around the skybox, all the stars, and it does some really cool effects. And I know a handful of planets that you can go to and just witness this and observe this. So that is a very interesting dynamic, because some planets like Venus, it is literally 1,000 times longer than Earth's day, and it takes forever for a day and night cycle to occur. So you could literally stand on the planet in game for hours on end, just experiencing daytime for the longest time. So there is those gameplay aspects, but those are aspects that a lot of players will miss unless they're taking a moment to stand and look up at the sky and see what's actually happening.
Wow. This reminds me of that scene in the Interstellar movie where you visit a water world, you remember? And every hour spent in that world is like centuries in other planets. I don't think we have such extremes here, right? But it's a fascinating idea.
It is, and it's actually based on reality. So if you look up Venus's day-night cycle, I believe it's longer than a year. It rotates very slowly.
Wow.
So that's based off of real science. But yeah, it's one of those really cool things. Like sometimes you'll look up at the skybox and you'll see the stars moving really quick, and then on another planet, they don't seem to move at all.
Insane. Now, if a new player watches this video or many of your videos and wants to observe Starfield's astronomical simulation system, how do they go about it? Do you have any tips for them?
I think my biggest tip is if you want to see it in motion, in action, would be to go to a very large gas giant and go to the innermost orbit. Those orbits are typically nice and tight and fast around the planet. Just pick a couple different landing spots until you see the gas giant in the night sky, and then just sit and wait, 10 to 15 minutes. You'll probably see a whole entire day and night cycle. You'll get to see an eclipse occur. You might even get to see other astronomical events based off of other moons.
Wow, and most of these moons orbiting the gas giants, are they like tidally locked? Is that the case in your observations?
Yes, that is correct. And based off of the moons we know about, the ones within Sol in real life, the majority of moons actually are tidally locked. So, what does that mean for the player perspective? Is if you find a tidally locked moon, you can build an outpost that's facing, say, like a gas giant, and it will always stay that way in the night sky. You might be able to get to see like the precession of the rings and stuff as its axis tilts, but it'll be on the same point in the horizon for the foreseeable future.
Fantastic. Finally, I feel so bad that such an amazing system was not integrated into the narrative of Starfield. Just imagine if the player character could join the Astronomy Guild of the Settled Systems, where you chase perfect eclipse alignments across multiple star systems, and would have showcased this genius of a system.
So I would have absolutely loved this if Bethesda could pull it off. But this would be an absolute heck of a technical feat, because a lot of these astronomical events basically that you're observing are just the interplay of like the skybox system and all that tracking, and then the volumetric lighting. So they would basically have to know when these events are occurring and where they're observable from. These are things that like could be probably calculated within the game itself. But that would be a heck of a way to pull, if you did pull that off. That would be an amazing technical feat to have dynamic, quest locations that would know where these events were happening. This is definitely something that I think if Bethesda was able to pull off, this would pull a lot of players into observing and being able to find ways to enjoy this astronomical system, because a lot of people, they can play through the game, they might not ever see an eclipse happen, and they don't know how to look for them, and they don't even think to look for them. They just play through the quests, have their fun, and then go off, and then they might see a video somewhere someone posts online, like, oh my god, I can't believe that happens in game.
Right, that would be an incredible quest line, right? I mean, your focus is just on science, so how different would that be? I mean,
I think so. That would be, I know, that was one of the aspects, like a role-play aspect that I liked about the game, was role-playing as like an astronomer or scientist.
Right.
And I think they probably could have tied quests in a little bit better to help the player learn about those gameplay mechanics.
Right. What an incredible system. Wow. Do you think they even spoke about the system during the marketing, during the Starfield Direct event? I don't think so, right?
I do recall Todd talking about it on an interview. I forget whose interview it was, but talking about how everything was simulated. And that's how they did the skyboxes. I'm not sure if that interview was before the launch of Starfield or shortly after.
Right. Now let's move on to space flight systems, okay? So the first system is the Grav Jump system. The player plots Grav jumps across star systems based on the ship's fuel and the Grav engine capacity, right? I assume the idea behind Starfield's Grav jump is similar to Star Trek's Warp Drive, where a spacecraft would traverse distances by contracting space in front of it and expanding space behind it, resulting in faster than light travel in quotes, right? Do share your thoughts about this system.
So I have to agree with you. At least my interpretations of the story, Grav Drive technology, what we know about it, the artifacts themselves manipulate gravity. So my interpretation has always been that this is some kind of device to use gravity to warp space and time, and essentially have a warp drive. As far as like gameplay mechanics go, I think this is probably the best solution. I know I've heard some people say, like, I want to be able to, travel and not have like a loading screen between star systems. But if we're trying to keep like scientific reality, there's going to be a whole lot of nothing between star systems.
Right. Exactly. Is there any bit of lore or any dialogue from NPCs that talk about the Grav Drive system? And do you have an idea?
Well, we do know from the main quest line that they do an experiment on the moon where they basically test the Grav Drive and fly out to Jupiter. And we know it beats the radio signals. So, at least lore-wise, they explain it as being a faster-than-light travel. But I don't know if it explicitly says, like, how does it achieve that?
Right.
It's basically all implied, at least to my knowledge. I've never seen any kind of like story or lore bits that would explain whether this is explicitly a warp drive or somehow it's getting around the rules of physics.
In Star Trek, there was a warp drive creator, right? Zephram Cochrane. Yeah, I remember that. Zephram Cochrane, he was a guy who invented the warp drive.
One movie.
Yeah, there was a movie. Exactly, there was a movie about his story. I wish we had some kind of a story in Starfield as well, but yeah, interesting.
Oh, we do. The creator of the Grav Drive, you find his corpse with basically a gun in his hand and essentially a note saying that he knows he destroyed the Earth. So, spoiler. If you haven't done the main quest, that's a little bit of spoiler, but we do have the creator of it. We do know kind of, it's implied that he's offed himself. Yeah, you'll find his corpse on Earth in NASA, and the note, I'm not going to give huge details of it, but he's expressing a lot of remorse.
Ooh, so something bad happened as they invented the tech, I guess?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, so I've clocked 180 hours in Starfield. I've not started the main quest yet. And my third character now, I'm going to start the main quest. So I look forward to it.
I think you'll enjoy it.
One more thing about the Grav Drive. I love the fact that Bethesda integrated fuel mechanics with the Grav Drive system. It's there in the game UI, right? But the player does not have to refuel their ships. Todd said that they removed it as it apparently made the game not fun. So what do you think?
So this is one of those ones where I agree in spirit with Todd. Like, I don't think I personally would have enjoyed this, and I'm not sure how much people would have personally enjoyed this. It's kind of diving really deep into a space sim thing. But on the other hand, I feel that Bethesda and the fan base has learned a lot about gameplay settings and how to put survival mechanics and tuck those into like a gameplay setting. And that's basically my thoughts on it. Is I think it should be in the game as a survival toggle on for more serious players that want that space sim feel.
As we're talking about space flight, the next system is the cruise mode system, where you fly between planetary bodies within a system. Many players, including me, complained that there was no actual space flight in a space game when Starfield came out, And I'm so glad that Bethesda responded by introducing this new system in the Freelanes update. And I love it. I made a dedicated video recently showcasing how cruise mode transforms your Starfield experience. It totally reminded me of Star Trek, where your science officer makes long distance scans and finds interesting stuff that may alter your plans. It's just brilliant. What are your thoughts on this one?
So cruise mode, I kind of have mixed bag opinions on this. I really enjoyed the points of interest. I also, visually, it was great, and it does break up those loading screens and allow for more immersive gameplay. However, I did feel like the controls were a little bit clunky, and then there was also like a little bit of a janks. Like sometimes you can bounce right off of the planet or fly entirely through it. So overall, it's a net positive for me, but I still think it needs a little bit more polish to it.
I'm glad it's there because I feel it also enhances your questing experience, right? For example, a quest to visit a moon of Neptune now feels like an actual journey, it's not just clicking menus to fast travel. A simple delivery job that used to involve clicking menus now feels like a real delivery job. You actually have to travel. So I feel it adds to the questing experience as well.
Yes, I think this is the exact problem that cruise mode does address. Like that travel when you're doing questing, like, hey, I need you to go from planet A to planet B, pick up item, bring it back. Prior to cruise mode, that was essentially, 2 loading screens out there, 2 loading screens back, and really no travel mechanic. What cruise mode actually did was slide in a travel mechanic right in between those 2 loading screens to break them up. And I think that's what the primary complaint about loading screens wasn't the hard count of them. It was the back-to-back loading screens. Like,
right.
Hey, I just had a loading screen 5 seconds ago. Now I'm having another one.
Right. Yeah, this gets rid of that issue, right? I had this conversation with the one person on Reddit, and she said Bethesda went back on their promise and they introduced a system which is not lore friendly. What do you say to that?
I mean, technically, but Tolkien, he retconned his work, and we still consider him a master. So,
right. Was it
it's one of those things. It's never mentioned, but you would think it would be mentioned. So it's one of those things. It's just never mentioned in the game.
I see.
And then out of nowhere, we have cruise mode.
Right. I told the person that, when you use your ship to travel between systems, you can see in the UI that there's a fuel consumption that's happening, right? And then when you travel within the system, there's no fuel being consumed. So I always assume there are 2 modes of travel, even before cruise mode came out, I guess people have to realize that this was always there, but it was happening behind the scenes, right?
I guess that's the assumption that we should take if we're looking to be completely lore safe with this, is that fast travel mechanic between planets, which showed a different cutscene, that was actually cruise mode.
Ah, exactly. Anyway, as we're discussing spaceflight, I wanted to talk to you about one more interesting aspect. In the main quest, Welcome Home, right, when you're flying in an asteroid field, Sarah advises you to power down your ship to minimum, right, 1 or 2 bars on the engine. And that was an example of ship stealth, which I thought was a really cool idea. So if you're role-playing as a rogue smuggler and you get a smuggling mission from the Crimson Fleet to smuggle Aurora, for example, and assuming your character has a huge bounty in Freestar and UC space, I always wondered if you could use ship stealth to avoid scans or avoid ship combat. What are your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, that is the only time within the game you will see any reference to stealthing a ship, other than the combat mechanic they have. I think that's definitely an opportunity that they could have had, and they kind of play it up in that situation. There's never an option to kind of stealth past the guard outside of New Atlantis and land your ship anyways. That would have been cool if they added some kind of mechanic that's able to do that. As far as space combat, they do have cloaking mechanisms for combat, but they're very short term and they're designed around the combat mechanics themselves.
So if you Grav Drive into another system with 1 bar in the engines and 1 bar in your shields, and if there are hostiles nearby,
I'll have to try it. I'll have to test that. I don't think I've ever tried it before, but I have a feeling it's not going to work. I'm going to try that. Where
Yeah,
I just jump systems until I trigger a hostile combat and have like everything powered down and see if they see me
yeah.
or not.
All right, so that's about the space flight systems, right? So now let's move on to ship systems, okay? Here we have power allocation and target control systems. So essentially, you can dynamically shift energy between lasers, ballistics, missiles, engines, shields, and grav drives during combat. And you can also lock onto specific enemy ships to disable their engines. I felt this system is Starfield's implementation of VATS that can be used during ship combat. I must admit, I have never used the system as I don't do a lot of ship combat. I just run away. But I love how Bethesda integrated the RPG skill system with many of these ship mechanics. Like, for example, the player character has to get skilled in piloting, targeting systems, and engine system skills. And thus, I guess they can feel a progression in ship combat, right?
So honestly, this is one of those things that I use basically every combat, with the exception of me completely outclassing the enemy. Otherwise, I'm using it because, like VATS, it is very overpowered, and then it's also necessary for another one of the like mechanics within this game with stealing ships. Well, you can steal ships without using it, but it's a lot more difficult and a lot more RNG kind of triggers.
Right. If you're surrounded by 4 or 5 ships, I guess it helps at that time, right? I mean, it helps to use VAT on one ship and then move to another one.
Yeah, so it slows down time just like that,
Yeah.
and you have like an increased rate of fire, so you'll take ships down a lot quicker, and you hit with every one of your shots. So
Right.
it's
Can you take down enemies' engines and then they are just rooted in their spot? Does that happen?
yes, that is exactly how you board ships. They have legendary ships in the game, and one of the strategies I like to deploy against them is shooting out all their weapons, and so they can't shoot me back. So
Right.
there's definitely that with the targeting system. There's also, like, when you're taking down ships, you can target their shields just to get them dead quick.
Crippling a ship by disabling its engines. This reminds me of Morrowind's damage strength spell, where you set the enemy strength to 0 and they can't move. I don't know, for some weird reason, it's reminding me of that.
That's what it feels like when the enemy does it to you. All of a sudden, you're just over encumbered. You can't move anywhere.
Oh, hang on. Enemies can disable your engines?
Oh yes, it happens. You can turn really slowly, and you're basically a sitting duck, and you hope they fly in front of you.
Okay, so is there option to repair the engine or replace the engine in that case?
When it comes to like the specific areas of the ship, like the engines, the shields, and stuff, that's automatically repaired by your crew over time. They have like a med pack situation.
Right.
So,
if an enemy disables your ship's engines, do you get a notification that the engines are gone and you have trouble moving around?
oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
you'll know about it really quickly.
Wow, fascinating.
When it comes to weapon systems, you basically have like 3 categories. You have ballistics, which are good at taking out hulls. You have like laser kind of weapons that are good at taking out shields. And then you have EM weapons that are good at disabling stuff without breaking them. And then I guess I could throw in missiles there as well. Missiles require a lock, but they do tons of damage.
Right. So you can convert your laser into a EM, you're saying? Or
If you want that. Or you could set up a system that's like just designed to destroy ships. I basically go with 2 ship setups. One is designed for capturing ships, and one's designed for destroying ships.
Then you have the ship capturing system. Now, this system encourages players to build fleets, experiment with different ship classes, and roleplay as pirates or scavengers. I feel this is a gameplay loop within itself, right? Boarding ships, stealing ships, discovering ships, buying ships, selling ships. I understand this is one of your favorite non-story gameplay loops.
By far, it is my favorite gameplay loop just on its own. And then also, if I need to get money, I find it to be the most enjoyable way to gather money within this game.
Right.
So why I like it is because it has the two forms of combat that's key to Starfield. You have your spaceship encounter, and then when you're trying to capture ships, it becomes a lot more strategic because you can only board a ship if it's the only one still alive in the area. They won't allow you to board while there's still active enemies around. Makes sense, they would probably shoot you if you did it in real life.
Wow.
But because of that, you have to do things like determine which is the most expensive ship on the fly and intentionally avoid that to the very end. And then there's the whole mechanic of disabling the ship and boarding it, where you have to specifically target the engines, knock them offline, and also do not destroy the ship in the process, which can be difficult. But you have things like EM weapons that make it a lot easier. You can mount those to your ship and it'll disable without doing damage. And then the actual really fun part, and I find this part to be extremely immersive in that kind of role play of being a pirate or what have you, is the actual boarding of the ship and going through clearing the ship and sitting in the captain's chair. It is just very fulfilling. It's all this really tight close quarters combat because you're inside a ship essentially.
Right.
And then it's like a mini point of interest in itself. And the game, every single ship has its own separate layout. So it's like this whole subsystem of points of interest within the game that's filled for players to explore. But every once in a while you'll run to it and it'll say inaccessible. I hate running into doors where it says inaccessible. And I can't go into it. Like, break the door or something. Don't tell me I just can't open it.
I wonder why they did that. So some ships can't be boarded. They just can't. No explanation given.
Yeah, you'll see probably 1 in every 5 ship landings is going to be a ship that cannot be boarded. You cannot get on it.
So you disable the engines and they're like stuck there forever, and you'll just leave.
Oh, not in space. So that doesn't happen in space, but that happens specifically if you're boarding ships that have done a landing on a planet somewhere. There's that. That's like a whole second system to the ship that you can do it planet side as well. So you'll see them. They'll land from orbit. Basically, you can hear them when you're kind of just randomly exploring planet side. You just look up in the air, check it out. If it's a ship you want to steal, run over to the landing site, jump in it, and take off.
Wow, that's funny. Right.
Every once in a while with those ones, the whole entire crew left and went planet side, and they left their ship empty for you. You can just walk into it and take it. One of the things I would point out to players, if they've never experienced this system, they want to go ahead and explore it, is the money's not really in selling the ship. You'll probably get like 20,000 credits. The money is selling the junk that was in the ship. Good mechanic that Bethesda did was when you sell the ship, all its junk transfers automatically to your cargo hold.
Fantastic. Great tip. Next, we have the ship smuggling system. So this system enables the movement of contraband items like drugs, stolen artifacts, or illegal weapons.
So the smuggling system, this is a very interesting system. Like, it's a fully functional system, and it works by using scan jammers and fielded cargo to basically lower the percentage of you getting caught during a scan when you're going into one of the major hubs. Also, if they had a stealth mechanic, that could also be a third option there to utilize that mechanic with smuggling. But this is one of those things, like, it's not tied into like any quests within the game. Like, you don't see this like in the like any of the major quests within the game. There's no like reoccurring quests like, hey, I need you to smuggle drugs to the well every 2 weeks or anything like that. So I think that's one of those things. Like, we have this perfectly good system.
Right.
Most players, myself included, kind of avoid it and see it as an annoyance because sometimes you'll accidentally have contraband on you. You get snagged in New Atlantis, and it's like, stupid contraband system. But I think if they would have incorporated this better narratively, players probably would have utilized it a lot more. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that system. It just needs a narrative backbone to make it fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, just imagine a settled system, Thieves Guild, and where your questline is all about smuggling, right?
Yeah, they had that one quest line in Neon, that drug dealing quest line, and I was hopeful for that one where, like, but they never asked you to go to, like, New Atlantis with a shipment.
Right. That was about the ship systems, and now we'll move on to exploration systems. Now the first one is Planet POI system, where you discover procedurally placed abandoned labs, military garrisons, and natural anomalies. One of the main criticisms of the game has been about the frequency and the number of land-based point of interests. Placing these generatively rather than by hand, you run the risk of players never seeing some, or worse, seeing the same one twice in quick succession.
So Freelanes added, I think it was roughly somewhere between like 28 and 30 new points of interest to the Radiant POI system. So far, my experience in playing this has resulted in a lot more diverse portfolio of points of interest being presented to me. One thing I will say, I think they did something to stop repeats from happening. Don't quote me on this though. But my experience, I haven't seen the same point of interest spawn twice within the same tile. And before Freelanes, that was a common occurrence where you would see like an abandoned laboratory right next to the same abandoned laboratory. So that, I haven't seen that. So whatever they did beyond expanding the pool, it seems to be working. Though I do think there's still room for improvements within the POI system and the Radiant POI system, and it's mainly with the main quest itself. So the main quest, it uses this reduced pool of POIs. It's about like 14 or so. And what does this result in? This results in, like, if players, they just play like the main story and they're done with it. There's a lot of players that do that. They just play the main storyline and then they peace out afterwards. But if they do that, they're going to miss huge portions of this POI system and not be presented with it. And then potentially they could get duplicates within that main quest. So I think there's a little bit of room for improvement in how they deploy them in quests and how they manage the POI pools that are eligible for certain places.
So essentially, when you land on a planet, essentially a new world space is generated and these points of interest are populated, right? You've been modding Starfield. I think you have an idea on what's happening.
Yeah, that's exactly when it happens. So prior to landing, the planet does not exist. The tile does not exist. It's generated when you land on it. That's kind of when the game starts tracking all those objects, and it spawns in the different points of interest. For example, like if you land on a planet, spawn in that tile, and then you go and install a mod pack, you will have a 0% chance of landing back on that same exact tile that already spawned and getting one of those new points of interest from like that point of interest pack that you just installed. So that's basically how it works. But they have a rather interesting keyword system to control what spawns and where is it eligible to spawn. Like, for example, I can tell you man-made structures are prohibited from spawning on Earth.
Right.
I won't tell you why. I'll let you play through the main quest to figure out why. But
Right.
that's just the interesting thing is like they control what's eligible and where, and those systems can be manipulated by mod authors.
Now, there's also the space POI system, right? The space point of interest system, where handcrafted points of interest are available in space as well. You can encounter derelict ships, anomalies, and gives you exploration opportunities while traveling, right? So this system was introduced as part of the freelance update, and I think it's incredible. Cruising between planets and moons really feels like true space exploration when you encounter these space POIs. For example, I was taken out of cruise mode last week, and I found a derelict asteroid, and it had a full interior and had a 0G cavern with a lot of combat, epic stuff. I never expected that, you know. I was just traveling between a planet and a moon and I encountered this amazing space POI. Stuff like this is fantastic, right?
I absolutely agree. So, in my opinion, this content manager is essentially what made cruise mode a feasible thing for me. So,
Right.
I played mods like Astrogate, which essentially had interplanetary travel.
Right.
Almost as smooth as cruise mode, not quite there yet, but without that content manager, for me it was a novelty. Like, if I flew from the Earth to the moon once, I never wanted to do it again, because you're just flying in a straight line. But adding those dynamic encounters, different points of interest to explore, cruise mode just isn't a silly travel mechanic to break up loading screens. It becomes some kind of dynamic exploration experience where you have these different points of interest that you're able to explore, see the environmental storytelling, and then get your location and do the quest again. So, and that's one of those things that I appreciated. It's kind of reminiscent of Skyrim, in my opinion. When you would go out to do a quest,
Right.
you would see 4 or 5 different points of interest, and it breaks up that quest. And I think that's one of the things that was lost a little bit in Starfield was the distractions you would have that would pop out of the environment.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah. Without this content management, as you said, cruise mode would just be a gimmick, right? But now it's something else. Next, we have a creature simulation system, right? As you explore planets and moons, you encounter this system which brings the procedurally generated planets to life with believable dynamic wildlife.
So I have a ton of interesting experiences with them. I can give a ton of details about the fauna system itself. So the entire behavior system underlying it is actually like really super complex that handles things like sleeping patterns, diets, aggression, herding, combat style. And this is probably one of the things that I think makes exploring planets interesting. So, at least when I was exploring planets, the only time I would ever stop on some boring old airless rock was because I thought it had a good view and I could see some good stellar event. But if I really wanted to explore, I was always going to a life-bearing world because I didn't know what the heck I was going to see. Like, am I going to see some crazy herding crab, or am I going to see some like giant rhinoceros creature?
I guess most systems have planets that are life-bearing.
I'd say most systems in this game have 1 to 2 life-bearing worlds.
Right.
Typically what they'll do is they'll put like one in the Goldilocks zone, and then they'll put one as a moon around like a gas giant that's heated through like tidal forces. Where it'll be on an inner orbit. I like how they do that, by the way, because like that gives a very alien vibe when you're looking at like alien life, and you can see like a ginormous freaking like orange gas giant in the background. So I think that's a really cool thing that they did when they were setting up the life-bearing worlds within these systems, was to include one floating around a gas giant.
That leads to the planet scanning system. Now, this system, man, surveying strange worlds is one of the coolest gameplay loops in Starfield, in my opinion. A system forces you to explore these planets, right? Invariably, you encounter beautiful views and biomes as you scan planets, and I feel scanning is a great way to get XP and level up quickly as well. The main pull was how many of the fun skills in the science tree elevates your surveying and scanning experience. And if you have the Rev 8 vehicle, scanning everything basically reminds me of going on a jungle safari sometimes. I just love it.
Yes, it's a very interesting system. Though I will say, like, if you're going to try to approach scanning within Starfield as like a completionist mindset, you're going to have a very boring experience.
Right.
I myself like to approach it by just picking and choosing which worlds I wanted to scan, and I would focus mainly on like life-bearing worlds because that flora and the fauna is essentially what's going to make that exploration experience and gameplay loop interesting.
If you're looking for excitement, I don't think the system will interest you, right?
Yeah, this is definitely for players that are looking for a lot more relaxed gameplay compared to, you know, I feel like that's kind of a trend nowadays where people, with a lot of their gameplay, they want everything to be bang, 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 explosions, constantly cutscene, and it's like,
Right.
sometimes Starfield asks you to really slow down when you're playing to enjoy some of these systems.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Next exploration system is the Planetary Vehicle system. You have drivable rovers and vehicles for surface exploration. What? Drivable vehicles in a Bethesda game? How is that possible, right? That was my first thought that came into my mind. And won't the creation engine explode? Because I do remember testing a kart mod in Skyrim or a car mod in Fallout 4. It was not pleasant at all. The fact that Bethesda implemented drivable vehicles in Starfield is huge. It's a huge progress for the creation engine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I would say, though, I'm kind of like one of the weird people when Todd Howard said, like, travel, you have your boost pack, that's what we gave it for you. I use my boost pack way more than I use the Rev 8, so I almost never use it. And that is because I feel like a lot of the biomes were not designed with hard travel in mind. There's rocks all over the place. There are some good places to travel, like sandy deserts. Great for the Rev 8. I love taking it through there. But I barely use it. I'm glad they added, because that is definitely going to open up options within Elder Scrolls 6. And there's a lot of fun and interesting stuff with like flying vehicles that mod authors have added to Starfield.
Since we're talking about exploration, now in your experience, like, have you visited worlds like a desert planet which has sand dunes with no rocks? Or have you seen flowing rivers like Skyrim?
So I will say one thing, sandy deserts typically, they have low rocks, but no rocks, they're like, you're not going to find it within the base game. Now, someone did do a mod on that does a rock suppression.
They just went crazy with these rocks, right? Everywhere you have rocks.
They did. They went rock insane. I'm going to tell you right now, I've researched the whole entire problem in doing rock suppression within biomes, because like that stuff drives me crazy, the amount of rocks they put down. And then they give us the Rev 8, and it's like, I can't drive anywhere, there's rocks everywhere.
Right.
But yeah, they did a very decent job on the sandy desert. There's not that many rocks there.
Interesting. What about rivers? I haven't seen one.
So rivers, there is some in a wetland. There's some in a wetland biome. They're not flowing. And I've recently seen a mod author release a mod that does have rivers, but no like flow to the rivers.
I guess it's a limitation of the procedure generated system, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. Was they were unable to get like the flowing rivers with the rock gen. At least my understanding of it, like it's a bunch of little pieces just being assembled.
Right, now let's move on to crafting systems. Shipbuilding system. This system is praised universally. Even many of the Starfield hater YouTubers say it's a great system. So can you explain the progression of the system? Does gaining levels aid shipbuilding?
So this definitely wasn't a system that I got super duper heavily into, but like I've followed this system pretty closely because the Starfield community they're definitely big on this shipbuilding.
Right.
Now there is level unlocks and stuff to the ship parts, and then there's some of them that are locked behind it. And I kind of agree with this. Like, it's an aspect of the game. It's not the whole game, so it should be integrated in kind of like some sense. And at least with the perks, like that kind of makes some sense to me. One interesting story I have about the shipbuilding system, and this is a funny one because it's the one thing that makes it interesting and fun is a defect. It is a process called flip merging, where players can merge and clip together two different pieces of the shipbuilder to kind of assemble almost an infinite number of different ship parts.
Oh, wow.
And merging them together and getting them to clip over top of each other. So Bethesda one day actually decided to fix this defect. The community collectively lost their mind for like a week, and then Bethesda went ahead and added the defect back to the game. It's kind of like your classic giants hitting the human up into the stratosphere defect. Like, you better leave that in the game. We actually like that.
That's funny, yeah.
But I have seen players build the most insane things I've seen. I think the craziest ship I've ever seen a player build was Goku on flying Nimbus, flying through space. I'm like, how the heck did you do that? And
Wow.
It looked exactly like the cartoon.
I guess you can also create a cube, like the Borg cube from Star Trek. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I've seen so much stuff. Especially when you add in like what modders have done, because like you have modders that put in like crazy ship parts that will like allow you to connect like 50 different pieces to it. So
Wow.
they go like absolutely nuts with this, and it's I really enjoy like the kind of like the shipbuilder crowd and see what they build and what crazy stuff they're up to next.
Next is the Outpost and Manufacturing system. Yeah, this system, right? I see a lot of discussions online where they compare this system, Starfield's Outpost system, to Fallout 4's settlement system. And many people have a very simplistic view, and they say that, the Fallout 4 system was far superior. You could install modular pieces, everything in Starfield is just prefab structures, and they just dismiss it, But I feel both of the systems are different because they serve different purposes, right? These systems serve different purposes. Like, while Fallout 4 is centered around community and home building, Starfield's approach is rooted in science and technology. I feel the Outpost system of Starfield is extremely underrated, and I loved building a factory, setting up fabricators, automating resource workflows, and churning out materials or processed goods. I also loved how all of this was tied to the character skill system in Starfield, right? Your character needs to specialize in science, skills, and enjoy the typical RPG progression there, whereas in Fallout 4 settlements were not tied to skills. Well, there were no skills in that game, nor there was any sense of progression. So I guess in order to appreciate Starfield's Outpost system, one needs to have a scientific mind, but a lot of people won't bother with all of this and think critically, but then they go to Steam or Reddit and cry.
So I absolutely agree. Fallout 4's settlement system was about like recreating civilization. It was all about getting settlers there and doing stuff to recreate society, whereas Starfield's settlement system or outpost system isn't about recreating civilization. It's about expanding or extending its reach out into the stars. So you essentially, and I've seen a lot of players do this, build an outpost network that mines resources and manufactures stuff and is completely automated and doesn't have anyone stationed at any of these outposts or even have habs for them.
Right.
It is just storage containers and manufacturing rigs, and that's it. And basically, shipping stuff off. So it's has a different feel to it. I would definitely agree that you can probably be a little bit more artistic with the Fallout 4 having the individual walls, but
Right.
it doesn't make sense narrative-wise why why you would be making custom buildings out in space, dropping pre-manufactured halves.
Yeah, that's the future.
You might not even have halves. It might just be robots automating stuff.
Exactly.
I know from my experience, I tended to lean more into like the scientific role-playing aspect. And I would build outposts specifically like in areas where like I could observe eclipses on a regular basis, where views were beautiful and stuff, and I would set up all the different research labs and everything like that in there, and that would be my kind of scientific outpost, and I would decorate it as such, as like a an astronomical observation center. That's how I experienced that.
There are many channels on YouTube, the small channels, but who've created some incredible factories and complicated network of fabricators and extractors.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of them, and the amount of planning that goes into that. Like, this planet has these resources, this planet has these resources, and this planet has these resources. They have to they literally have to go on the map and figure out a specific location where the biomes are buttressing up against each other, so they can get resources from multiple biomes.
Right.
So it's definitely not something easy to do. Like, this is some very advanced gameplay.
Right.
I would say I've done this before, where I've found those locations and made like crazy outposts that just have a stupid resource combo. So it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely not for the layperson.
Alright, so next we move on to the research lab system. This allows you to spend raw materials to unlock crafting recipes for items, weapons, and outposts.
So the research lab system, I have used it. So basically this is kind of, it's like the main research system that you're going to use in the game, and it's going to allow you to learn different crafting items for different crafting categories.
It's useful for people who want to manufacture ammunition, create their own weapons, or even for outpost building, right? I think these three areas, plus there's some recipes for cooking and medicines.
I think 100% of players will fall into one of those categories.
Right. Interesting. So what about weapon modding? You can customize firearms with scopes, extended magazines, high velocity barrels, and elemental ammunition.
So I will say I like this when Starfield originally launched, and I love it even more after Free Lanes came out, because Free Lanes expanded this, and it allows you to essentially not only like completely customize your weapon, but you can upgrade it with you in the tier levels, and then they also allowed you to switch out the different like special modifiers you get. I think it's called like an effect or something. It'll be like instigating, little named effects, and I like it better than Fallout 4, I would say, in its current state, just because it really allows you to personalize your weapon.
Alright, so that's about the crafting systems. So now let's move on to the RPG systems. So you have the skill and leveling system. In my opinion, the skill system of Starfield is incredible. It's a role player's dream with a wide variety of skills and progression systems. We can create all sorts of fun and unique builds, right? So
I have to agree with you in the most part. I think Starfield's skill system was an improvement over prior skill systems that Bethesda had out there.
Right.
But one issue I did have with it, and I would say it is because it doesn't have cap on skill points you get, but there's no cap on like levels. So you get to a certain point in the game where you've stopped being a class and you've started being a master of everything. And it's like, what am I? I'm a heavy weapons expert that also is running around with a sniper rifle.
Right.
It doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, I guess you can totally choose to limit yourself to your character specialization, but the game does not stop you from becoming a jack of all trades, right? Sadly, that's been Bethesda's design philosophy ever since Oblivion. I guess Morrowind was the final game that generally encouraged you to stay on a specific path. Yeah, sad. That's sad, actually.
Yeah, I think there's a happy compromise Bethesda could make in that.
Right.
Is gameplay settings.
Okay.
I think that's like the solution for this stuff is you have the base model where it's like we cap out your skill points at 65 and you stop getting them after level 65.
Right.
So you have to specialize in something and then you can turn that off to get like less experience.
Next, we had the trait and background system. This was a surprise to me, because before Starfield, we had Skyrim and Fallout 4, where they kept removing many of the character creation aspects of the old games. And when Starfield came out, they were like, we had traits, we had backgrounds. Wow, that shocked me. Essentially, reactivity to your choices in character creation really makes it feel like you made an actual person with a history that the world can comment on. And CRPGs do this all the time, which gives the feeling that your character's background is being noticed by the world around you. And a lot of people online say Starfield is not an RPG.
Well, I would definitely disagree with the assessment that, Starfield's not an RPG. But I definitely agree with you on those backgrounds and how they implemented it within the game. In particular, I'm going to think of the UC Vanguard questline. There's a point where you have to go to the Freestar consulate, and if you have the Freestar settler background, guess what? You can do the quest kind of like in a different way with like a persuasion check. It becomes significantly easier, whereas it's a rather difficult persuasion check if you don't have that trait. So, like, that background choice allows you to kind of role play that background within that quest.
Fantastic. So you have different experiences in multiple different playthroughs, right? That's great.
Yeah.
If that's not role playing, then what is?
I would
right?
definitely say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you were essentially being asked to play a role right there.
Yeah. Another first in Starfield is how we have those skill checks, background checks, and trait checks that appear in dialogue. That was never seen before in any Bethesda Elder Scrolls game. Starfield is a pioneer there.
They are definitely a pioneer. I've seen like some modders actually deploy that. I kind of wish they would do that more frequently though, where they have those little dialogue options for different characters that players can pick.
Yeah, you have a variety of skills, and we wish we had more such popping up. Yeah. Oh, cool. So that's about the RPG systems, and now we'll talk about the combat systems.
So I absolutely love a lot of the combat systems. I'm going to consider this a combat system because you can use it offensively. The boost pack, boost pack, that is just vertical combat to me has this very sci-fi feel. So that is something that I always enjoy. Like if I get into combat in open air, being able to go airborne, like Boba the Fett, and shoot at my enemy it's always a blast. As far as like AI goes, a lot of the systems in that, like the underlying AI behavior, I actually really love. So they have like a lot of stuff in there, like offensive flanking, defensive flanking, aggressive, and different AI behaviors, and a lot of them are very fun. And in fact, you can kind of mess around with a lot of those within the creation kit and have the enemies behave in like different ways.
Wow.
So I do love the systems that they do have in place for the AI. Sorry there. But one thing I would say is at times I feel like it's a little bit too dumb for me. Like I will just have them crouching behind a crate while I'm like standing right above them, shooting them in the head, and they're doing nothing about it.
They do take cover, right? They do go behind crates, and sometimes they do that.
They take cover.
Yeah.
They will flank you if you in times, and
Right.
I know within the creation kit you can definitely turn up that offensive flanking, and you will have a very fun experience because they will try to run around behind you and try to shoot you in the back. So there's like different AI packs going on in there, and depending upon like how you balance them, you can have some really fun experiences with.
Yeah, do you feel a difference when you're fighting in 0G?
Oh my god, 0G is that is such a crazy one.
Right.
Like, I have such a difficult time fighting in 0G. I absolutely hate doing it.
Right.
Shattered Space has this like amazing intro to it, and it's all in 0G. It's all very enjoyable, but
Wow.
like realism, it's very difficult to control yourself, especially like when you're trying to like shoot a mag shear that has like a rate of fire of like 300 rounds and just throws you into the wall. So
Wow.
I do love how difficult they make that space combat, because you need to have like special weapons for it, and you might not be perked out in those weapons.
Interesting. Anything that makes you uncomfortable is always interesting to me, you know?
Yeah, they make you feel uncomfortable in a good way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like stress-inducing a little bit. It's
Right.
a light touch of that. It makes the combat a lot more dynamic and difficult.
Right. So one criticism I see online is the lack of variety of enemies, right? So mostly you face humans. Is that really the case? You've played the game for so many hours.
If you don't want to count fauna as enemy combatants, then yeah. But like, there's a whole fauna system as well within this. Now, I can see where players are coming from. If they just run the quests and they don't really explore too much, they're not going to interact too much with like, a lot of the fauna.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably something Bethesda could have done better, was like integrating just random exploration somehow. Like I know the Radiant quests do it, but like.
Yeah, for example, in the POIs, you find mostly spacers, human enemies, right? And robots. Do you encounter any?
There are some points of interest that do have aliens within them.
Oh, really?
I can think of the abandoned mining platform. That one is overrun by like this crab creature. Very fun. Has a nice storyline to it. You can find it on icy moons.
Nice.
I won't ruin the storyline to it, but like they're pretty hard fauna to beat because they try to swarm you. And that's what I like about the AI. Like you can get them swarming at people. So.
Have you experienced spacers using different types of ammunition, like ice bullets, fire bullets, poison?
I've experienced mods. You can run up against like a spacer that has like a radiation effect on their weapon.
Really?
And that can be rather challenging because it like permanently decreases your health until you like get out of combat and sleep and stuff.
Okay.
So there's that. Like they can get weapons that have like crazy effects on them. I've seen them where you run into someone and they have a bolstering on like their equipment. So when they get low, like all their stats like max out. That makes combat extremely challenging and difficult. Like there's a lot of stuff going on with the different NPCs, and then with the free lanes update, they added like these essentially like mini bosses where they get special effects to them.
Wow, nice.
So
there's some variety to experience stuff.
There's variety.
Yeah.
If you're willing to like engage with it.
Right.
Like the flora or like the fauna system itself, like there's a ton of different like combat styles you'll find in there, and different mix-ups and matchups, like special abilities, like and then the humanoid, like you have robots as well, and there's a significant variety of humanoids because they can get different weapons and stuff.
This is just my curiosity. Have you experienced reflection? If you shoot an enemy using a laser weapon, it gets reflected back onto you. I remember reading something about this, but I've never experienced it. Check
Yeah,
it out.
I've never experienced it either, so I've never seen any kind of reflection of like or ricochets of bullets or anything like that.
Next, you have the Starborn powers. They use this mythical abilities like gravity distortion, time slowing, and stuff like that. Do you use those regularly in combat, or have you avoided that system?
I will tell you, I use it extremely heavily in combat, but that is not when I play Bethesda's base game version. When I'm playing like the base game of Bethesda Starfield,
Right.
it's too easy and it feels like Starborn powers are cheating. So I don't use them when I'm playing vanilla Starfield.
Right.
But if I have a lot of gameplay overhauls that make combat more difficult, like AI packs that change the behavior, I actually have to play with it. And I find that to be the most fun experience. You essentially go full on Space Wizard, freezing time, using gravity while doing all kinds of different tricks to destroy the enemy. And that for me is probably the most enjoyable gameplay of Starfield, and it makes it so much different than the other Bethesda titles when you're doing that.
Interesting. A lot of purists out there who want to shoot things. Many people feel this is a weird thing to add in a space game, but I think that's what differentiates Starfield from other space shooters, right?
Yeah. That's what I would say. I'd say, and that's kind of what makes it a science fantasy, in my opinion, is the incorporation of Starborn powers. Without that whole narrative there,
Right.
you essentially have a hard sci-fi. And there's a lot of hard sci-fi in Starfield, and I really enjoy it. But like that twist they do within the main quest narrative definitely adds that science fantasy that I like.
Alright, the final system. The Unity system. It is the most ambitious endgame and narrative feature where you enter a transcendent metaphysical process that lets your character ascend beyond their current universe. This triggers the New Game Plus system where you start a new journey in a parallel universe. Wow, I am totally fascinated by the concepts of Unity and New Game Plus of Starfield. These ideas, in my view, are rooted in certain Eastern spiritual traditions. If you think about it, when you die, you leave the world, everyone you know and everything you own is gone. And you have to cast away all of your attachments, and what lies ahead is the journey for the soul, which may come back in another body in new worlds to learn. There are theories of advanced souls who consciously leave the world and choose to enter the astral world or the Unity and return to the physical world to help people in a new life consciously, right? And if they choose to come back to the physical world, they become an avatar or a starborn in this case, a super advanced soul.
So this is kind of an interesting tidbit I like about the whole Unity narrative. Is one thing I know is it was like the Sanctum Universum. There's kind of like the religion. I'm not going to ruin the main storyline for you right now, but I'll speak generally about it. They are a religious group that kind of worships Grav Drive technology, and this all the religious writings of them was written by a Jesuit priest that worked on, what was it, Skyrim,
Right.
and then left to join the priesthood. So like there's a whole lot of like anti-attachment and materialism themes going on with the Unity, and it seems like there's a lot of pulling from Eastern and Western traditions, which, you know, this seems to be something that Bethesda does with a lot of their games. Maybe not the or the detachment kind of ideas that are being incorporated in that, but, you know, pulling from Eastern and Western traditions to kind of make like a religious thing within the game.
Yeah, like Morrowind had reincarnation, right? And that's a Eastern spiritual concept.
Oh yeah. There was tons of stuff in Morrowind. Morrowind was one of things that made that game so interesting.
Exactly.
But just to go on, it's kind of obvious why they went with this, with the themes that they did, with like the detachment from like the world and stuff, is because like what the Unity actually is, which is it's like a dev tool to scrub someone's save so they can continue playing without like experiencing save file bloat. So it's this basically like, hey, can we convince the player, please give up your junk, go through the Unity, and let us clean your save file for you.
That's interesting. So if you go into the next universe, now you can do the entire main quest again and other faction quest lines again?
Yes. You can in fact skip them too. They add an option to add, you not skip the main quest, but you do a condensed version of it.
I see.
Where they hand you a lot of the artifacts that they've already gathered. I think this was a nice way to do that, was to provide the player with essentially like a shortened version where they can play as a Starborn with knowledge of the prior universe, like events.
Right.
A great, wonderful narrative mechanic. It allows you to experience the game differently,
right.
And it allows you to also do it at a very faster pace.
So all the relationships you built in the previous life is gone. So the NPCs don't recognize you anymore?
They don't recognize you, but you can tell them. They don't stop you from that.
Okay. So if Sarah is your wife, she is now a stranger, right? In this reality.
Brand new one.
Wow, fascinating.
I'm kind of giggling because like there's a whole dialogue you're basically just describing right now.
Oh really? Oh no.
Yeah, you essentially can have this conversation with Sarah. Exactly.
Wow. And are there like different reactions, different dialogue? Have you observed different dialogue popping up?
Yes. So often they are going to have a Starborn option that's going to be present. And typically what that is going to allow you to do is just basically provide, hey, I have foreknowledge of events. Let's make this quest shorter, but narratively cohesive.
Wow, that's amazing. So you are an avatar, you've come back to the physical world and you have knowledge from what happened in the past and you don't want to repeat the same mistakes, right?
They might not believe you, but you can skip over whole entire events doing that. That's going to be one of my tips. If you've never gone through the Unity, if you pick the Starborn option, it's going to be Starborn narrative, which is typically going to mean a shorter, more condensed version of whatever was going to happen dialogue-wise.
Wow, fascinating. Really fascinating. How many times? So the Unity system is one of the key systems that are actually implemented in the narrative, right? So it is part of the narrative.
Honestly, I think that's probably the best way to incorporate an NG Plus system.
Right.
It's like narratively incorporating it within the story. And, a game like Starfield, the space game, that's a place where like a multiverse belongs narratively. It makes a whole bunch of sense to have a multiverse. I know some people complain like a multiverse is like a trope, but it makes sense in certain genres.
Right. All right, that completes our discussion on the 20 systems. Wow, it's been many hours. And Eclipse, do you want to talk about some of the modding exploration? You are working on some mods, right?
Yes, so I've done 3 different mods. I did Justice for Proxima, so I added Proxima Centauri to the game because Todd Howard for some reason didn't think to add the closest star to the solar system to the game, so I added it in there. Other systems I worked on, this is going to be interesting to the one we discussed earlier, was Tycho. So Tycho, that is a fun system, but it's not traditional fun. This is me playing around with a bunch of different orbital mechanics within the CK. So I have a lot of intimate knowledge about how the skybox works, and I basically did a bunch of orbital fun within the skies. So players will see a lot of different stuff, and that's available on every platform as well. And then there is Pytheas. Pytheas, I had a lot of fun. Recent update with that. This is the Explorer Paradise system, and basically it has tons of life. It is completely unrealistic in its amount of life it has. And I hand-did all the fauna, hand-did all the biomes with them, curated biome lists, and that's available on every platform, and I think players will enjoy it.
And you're working on a third project now.
The third project I'm working on, so this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be the first quest mod that I am doing.
Wow.
Right now I have a preliminary title for it. It's List Frontier Initiative, and this is going to add 6 new star systems to the star map, and it's going to be focused around a list-based quest where you're going to be building outposts in different areas to gather up different resources for List to build a kind of like an emergency supply system. There's definitely ways to integrate this kind of stuff into the game itself. So at least plans for this mod, it's going to add 6 new star systems. I currently have 3 designed out that are basically ready to make. I could have an ESM produced in like 15 minutes kind of deal. They're all spelled out. But I need 3 more systems. I have the quest mechanics figured out, but I still need to write the quest and then design the different stages and how it's going to progress through. But this is going to be a fun one. It's actually going to involve you scanning those life-bearing worlds, because I think that's a cool mechanic to add to exploration.
Right.
And that exploration system and tie players to it. But it's going to be a lot of fun, because I think it's going to really pull players into, 1, that exploration system, and 2, that outpost system as well.
Wow, I'm so excited. So quest line on settlement and exploration, right?
Very sci-fi kind of design, hard sci-fi, I will say. But like I'm going to basically be taking inspiration from Pytheas. So I'm going to try to have very busy, very fun systems to explore for players, and require them throughout this quest to scan life-bearing worlds and build different outposts.
Are you able to, for example, make an ice world where it's like snowing all the time or it's icy?
Yeah, so I did that within Pytheas. I redid the weather playlists for Pytheas specifically. I made the certain views. I made sure there was clear skies there, because one of the feedback I got from players was like, hey, these are really awesome, gorgeous views, but I keep getting foggy weather.
Right.
So I went ahead and figured out that weather system, and it's just a weighted playlist. Each biome gets its playlist, and like if you're drawing those biomes on those maps and it's in a sensical way, like you can have those tropical rainy islands that are right on the equator where it rains nonstop. Do that kind of fun stuff.
Wow, fun. Alright, I think we should end the video here. We've spoken for 3 hours. Wow, that's crazy. When you're talking about systems, it's always fun, right? Time just flies.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so it is my sincere hope that this video will serve as a helpful guide for new players as they begin their journey, while inspiring many others to overlook the negativity and give Starfield a fair chance, you know? And furthermore, I hope this video delivers a clear fudge you to those cynical YouTubers and other online commentators who dismiss Starfield as trash or claim Bethesda is creatively bankrupt. If these critics cannot appreciate the incredible depth of the gameplay systems and the nuance of its small stories, then they simply do not deserve your time or attention. I want to extend a massive thank you to Starfield Eclipse for collaborating on this project and for generously sharing your expert insights and first-hand experiences with the entire community. Your positive approach to exploring these complex mechanics is incredibly valuable. Thank you so much, Mr. Eclipse. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I think you nailed it out of the park there, but I very much appreciate you having me on.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Eclipse, and I look forward to all your cool mods that will come out soon. Mr. Eclipse, thank you so much for hanging out with us, the Magic Arctic community. And guys, if you're still here, and I appreciate you. If you have any questions on Starfield, please share them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.